Have you just recently purchased a new RV, or maybe you're renting an RV for the very first time? Well, I'm going to share with you some tips so that your fun camping trip doesn't become a frustrating camping trip. In this episode of Travels with Delaney. Welcome back, everyone. My name's Patrick, and if this is your first time at Travels with Delaney, welcome. We're your channel all about RVing and living life to the fullest. Now, a lot of people have been buying RVs this spring, and many more are going to be renting RVs for the very first time. And so I thought maybe this was a good time to share with you some tips to try to make sure that that fun camping trip doesn't become a frustrating camping trip. I've been doing this for 15 years now, and I still make some mistakes, but I thought maybe I could offer up some advice or tips that might be useful to you just to make sure you have a great camping season. So let's go ahead and start with the first tip. Tip number one is to make sure you turn your refrigerator on at least 24 hours before you plan on leaving on your trip. Now, these aren't like a residential refrigerator. They take a lot longer to get to the proper temperature. So I always come out the day before, open up the refrigerator, reach in and turn it on, and then I wait a day. When I get ready to load my refrigerator, if you're going to have a really long travel time, it's always good to put some frozen foods in because that frozen food will help to keep that refrigerator cold while you're traveling. Tip number two is before you unhitch your trailer, once you have it leveled from side to side, make sure you use wheel chucks to prevent your trailer from rolling when you go to unhitch it from your tow vehicle. I've actually seen instances where either trailers will roll backwards once they're unhitched or potentially roll forward, thus putting the tongue of the trailer in the back of your vehicle, causing damage. These little wheel chucks, they'll prevent that, and you'll be thankful you did it. Tip number three. Now, when you arrive at your campsite, if you're plugging into electricity, you're going to want to plug your surge protector into the electrical post first, flip the circuit breaker on, and make sure the wiring is good before you plug in your trailer. Now, you're going to want to go ahead and flip that circuit back off, and you're going to plug into your circuit breaker, and you're going to come over to your trailer, and you're going to plug in to your trailer. Now, a lot of times I will get messages on Friday night saying, Patrick, I have no power to my trailer, because this is what they forget to do. They forget to walk back over to the electrical post and flip that circuit breaker on, providing power to your trailer. So that's my tip. Just make sure after you shut the power off to plug in your trailer, don't forget to go back and flip that circuit breaker on. Tip number four. Now, if you've been trying to light your refrigerator on propane, or maybe you're trying to turn your furnace or water heater on propane and they just won't light, well, most likely you have air in your propane line. So my tip is make sure when you arrive at your campsite, go ahead and bleed off any air that might be in that. And this is a real simple process. All I do is I come in and I light my propane stove, and I'll let it burn for a few seconds just to make sure that the propane is flowing properly. And then once I know there's no air in the line, then I can go ahead and turn on my water heater, my furnace, or whatever else I want to run on propane, and there shouldn't be any issues with lighting them. Tip number five has to do with ventilation. Now, when we arrive at camp, we like to use our fans up above to just keep air flowing in the trailer. That way, maybe we won't have to turn on the air conditioning. But in order for fans to work properly, there needs to be a way to actually circulate the air. And so one of the things we always do is we make sure that we go ahead and we crack some windows. And that allows the fan, whether it's drawing air out of your trailer or whether it's bringing air in, it can actually circulate the air. Your fans are going to be a lot more effective if there are some ventilation cracks in your trailer. The other nice thing is if you're winter camping, you definitely want to keep a window or two cracked in the evenings, because otherwise you're going to end up with a lot of condensation on the walls and the ceiling of your trailer if your trailer can't breathe while heating in cold temperatures. If you're finding value in this video, we'd sure appreciate it if you'd hit that thumbs up button. And make sure you stay to the end of the video, because I'm going to provide a link to another video I did that will show you exactly how we set up our trailer at a campsite once we arrive at the campground. Tip number 6 is to make sure you don't forget to set up your toilet properly. Now, this isn't like a toilet at home. This is going to actually have a holding tank called a black tank. And before you use it for the first time, or each time after you dump your black tank, you need to set it up. And we're going to do that by starting by adding a chemical. Now, we like to use this Happy Campers. Now, Happy Campers is a powder. You just add 1 scoop to a full bowl of water, and then you go ahead and release it down into the black tank. And then I usually add a little bit more water. Now, this is going to help to control odors down in the black tank, both during your camping experience and when you go to empty your black tank. It also is going to help liquefy any solids. Now, one key to these black tanks is you want to make sure there's enough water down in the bottom that any solids that go down can float and not actually sit on the bottom, whether that be toilet paper or whatever. So I always like to add at least a gallon or more, depending on the size of the holding tank that you have. Now, if you've never heard of Happy Campers, I'm going to go ahead and put a link down in the video description for this product over on our Amazon shop. You can check it out there. There's lots of products out there, but this is the one we really like because it's environmentally friendly and it's biodegradable and it's safe for septic systems. Tip number 7 deals with that black tank. Now, when you get to a campsite, even if it's what we call a full hookup campsite, meaning there is a sewer hookup to where you can hook your hose up to that, you're still going to want to leave both your black and your gray tank valves closed, because the toilet in your RV doesn't work like your home toilet. There's not going to be enough water or pressure to actually push everything out and down the septic. So what you want to do is allow that black tank to just go ahead and fill up, and then once it's approaching full and you're ready to dump, then you'll come out and actually pull the valves. A lot of people will make the mistake of leaving both the black and the gray open during their stay, and then they can't understand why they're getting smells. Well, number one, they're getting smells from that sewer pipe that's coming right back up into their toilet. And number two, a lot of it's just not actually being pushed out and it's just sitting there and there's no chemical to help with the odors or the breakdown. So just make sure, even if you're at a full hookup, leave both valves closed until it's time to actually empty them. Tip number 8 still deals with the black and gray tanks and their valves. When it is time to actually go ahead and empty them, make sure you always pull your black tank first. That way we're going to let all that dirty water empty out. Then when we're done, we can close it back up, and then we're going to pull that gray handle, which is going to be that soapy water from your kitchen and your showers and your sinks, and that's going to help to clean out your sewer hose, so that when you do finally go ahead and disconnect your hose to put it away, hopefully it's going to be a little bit cleaner because you rinsed it out, in essence, with that gray water. Tip number 9. Now, if your trailer has an awning on it, regardless of what kind it is, if you think it's going to be windy or it's going to rain heavy, you're going to want to make sure you retract that awning in. Now, some of the newer RVs, higher end, have awnings that have rain sensors and wind sensors, but I'll be honest, most trailers don't. It's your responsibility to bring it in. And unfortunately, we have seen more than a handful of awnings that have either been broken from heavy winds, or they have actually been broken from too much water sitting on them during a heavy rain and actually will break the side arms. So if you think it's going to be storming while you're gone or while you sleep, then I would recommend you always retract that awning back in. You can always put it back out as soon as the storms are over. Tip number 10, when it's time to head home after your weekend or week of camping, make sure you put the antenna down and the step up. Now, a lot of the newer RVs have antennas that are stationary and you don't have to, but older RVs may have the old crank down style of antenna, and you want to make sure you put that down before you leave, but you also want to make sure that you put your step in. And I can speak from experience, on more than one occasion, I will still leave a campsite, look in my rear view mirror or my side mirrors and notice that the step is still out, which means I'm going to have to pull over, put it in for safe travel. All right, time for a bonus tip. Now, before you leave home or you leave the campsite, it's always really important to make sure you test to make sure your brakes and your lights on your trailer are working. So you plug them in. We always make the assumption that they work, but it's always good to test. So what typically I will do is I will fire up the tow vehicle, and then my wife will stand at the back and she will tell me which ones to try. And so I'll hit the brakes to make sure the brake lights are working. I'll do the left turn signal, the right turn signal, and I'll also check my brake controller to make sure it's reading when I push the brake down, so that we know the electronic brakes are working properly. Now, it's much easier to do if there's two of you, have one person at the back and one person in the vehicle, but there are ways to test it if you're by yourself, and you could simply turn on a turn signal, go to the back, and as long as that turn signal is working, at least you know you have a good connection. And the final thing I would recommend while you're doing that walk around, just make sure you remember to put a pin through the tongue where you hitch to your tow vehicle, just so there's no way that that could come loose while traveling and your trailer comes off. There you go. 10 simple tips to make sure that fun weekend doesn't become a frustrating weekend. Now, if you're wanting more information on how to set up at a full hookup campsite when you arrive at a campground, I'm going to pop a video over here for you that'll show you how we set up when we go to campgrounds that have full hookups. Till next time, everybody, have a great summer camping, and we'll see you on down the road. Good night.